President Donald Trump says Sudan will start to normalize ties with Israel, making it the third Arab state to do so as part of U.S. brokered deals in the run-up to Election Day.
The people of Sudan were ruled over by brutal Islamic dictatorships. It was the home of Osama bin Laden, a place of terror, genocide, and many other tragedies. Today, great people of Sudan are in charge, and new democracy is taking root.
The deal, which would deepen Sudan's engagement with the West, follows Trump's conditional agreement this week to remove the North African nation from the list of state sponsors of terrorism if it pays compensation to American victims of terror attacks. It also delivers a foreign policy achievement for Trump just days before the U.S. election and boosts his embattled ally, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And our Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joins us now with more. Chris, you've been reporting in Israel and the region for more than 20 years. Give us some historical context for today's announcement.
Well, Mark, I would say that it's really breathtaking. If you remember back in 1967, after the Six-Day War, there was a famous Arab League summit there, and they said three no's: no to peace, no to negotiations, and no to recognition. And just a few minutes ago, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he made the announcement to the Israeli public, and he said there's three yeses: yes to peace, yes to negotiations, and yes to normalization. And covering this area for a long time, Mark, it's really breathtaking to see what's happening. We interviewed the Minister of Regional Cooperation the other day here in Israel. He said it's really a new Middle East. Shimon Peres had announced that a couple of decades ago, but really during that time it was more terror. But really we're seeing a new Middle East here in the region.
Chris, how is this being received in Israel itself?
Well, exciting. They're excited about what happened earlier this week with the UAE and Bahrain. They're excited about more trade, more normalization, more tourism. Sudan was an arch enemy of Israel for years, and now they're normalizing relations. They used to smuggle, Iran would smuggle weapons through the Sudan to Hamas. So this is really for Israelis probably the best news they're getting during COVID-19.
You see this practically helping Israel and Sudan?
Well, for example, Sudan's going to get the technology from Israel, particularly agriculture. That's something they really need desperately. For Israel, they're going to be able to fly over Sudan, closer routes to South Africa, even South America. Sudan is going to get help financially because they're going to be able to expand to the global financial markets. There's $60 billion in debt for Sudan. It's a win-win, actually, for both countries, Sudan and Israel.
And Chris, who could be next in line to normalize relations with Israel? Saudi Arabia, perhaps?
That's a possibility. Trump tweeted out, he announced that there was going to be 5 other nations. We're talking about maybe Morocco, Oman, but the big nation here in the Middle East would be Saudi Arabia. Joel Rosenberg, who's made a couple of visits there, he told us earlier that it's going to be just a matter of time when Saudi Arabia, the big Sunni Arab nation here in the Middle East, is going to make peace with Israel.
And quickly, Chris, what are the dangers about this new Middle East?
Well, if you remember, Anwar Sadat, the president of Egypt, he made peace with Israel. He really paid with his life. Iran is the big one that is losing in this, with all these Sunni Arab nations forming like an Arab NATO, a unified stance with Israel against Iran. So that's the danger right now, how they and possibly Turkey are going to react to all these new peace deals.
All right, our Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, thanks for your time, sir.
Great to be with you, Mark.